Starting from this episode, I'm launching a new series, The Summer Palace. I got here at 6:20 in the morning to beat the crowds. Since it was so early, some buildings were not open yet, so the final video will include clips filmed at different times of the day. In China, gardens are a form of architecture and art. They usually feature a mix of palaces, rivers, bridges, lakes, pavilions, and more. This is the main entrance of the Summer Palace, but is not in use anymore. Stone or bronze lines are standard from luxury homes in traditional architecture. This plaque was inscribed by Emperor Guangxu. It bears the name of the Summer Palace in his own handwriting. To give you a more immersive experience, I'll be filming with the 0.5 times wide angle lens. I have also prepared a custom map in English with all the major buildings labeled and our walking route clearly marked. I have planned 3 walking routes to explore this massive garden. The first route takes us through the palace area, is the most famous and also the most crowded part. The second route focuses on the mountain area. Walking through the trees and winding paths up the mountain offers a different kind of beauty. The third route will all about the lake. Now I have entered the park. This is the back side of the main entrance. Houses in this yard may be used as a reception office and guard office. After this gate are the living area of Empress and other royal family members. This garden had been built twice, the first time during the 1750 to 1764, but most of the buildings were burned in 1860. And during 1886 to 1895, most part of this garden were rebuilt. I'll tell you this history later on. During the Qing dynasty, the art of garden design reached its peak. In traditional Chinese gardens, you will often see those porous rocks. They are called Taihu stone, mostly from southern China, and they are meant to reflect natural beauty. A Taihu stone this large would be extremely expensive. This grand hall was where the emperor held large meetings. In most Qing royal gardens, this kind of building is usually placed near the main entrance. That's because ministers weren't allowed to rent houses inside the palace grounds, and the emperor didn't want them to walk too far. This animal is called a Qianlong, a mythical beast in Chinese culture. Why does this meeting hall even exist in garden? That's because the Qing dynasty represented the height of absolute monarchy. The emperor was expected to work every day, even while vacationing in a garden. The doors to this hall haven't opened yet, but here is what the interior looks like. In ancient China, dragons symbolized the emperor, while the phoenixes represented the empress. So why is the dragon placed on the outside here and the phoenix in the center? That's because during the late Qing dynasty, the real power belonged to the Empress Dowager Cixi. Her only son died at the age of 19. After that, he named her sister's son, who was also her late husband's nephew, as the next emperor. But Cixi held all the actual power. When this garden was rebuilt, she deliberately placed the phoenix in the more prominent position to reflect her dominance. In traditional Chinese courtyard design, you will often see symmetrical buildings on both sides of the main hall. You'll notice this pattern again and again throughout the palace. These side halls were likely used as offices for ministers. Let's move on to the next group of buildings. When this garden was first built, it was called Yiheyuan, which roughly means clear and rippling waters. The lake is really the highlight of the entire place. After it was rebuilt in 1886, the name changed to Yiheyuan, which means something like Garden of Nurturing Harmony. So the history of this place can be divided into two main periods, the Qingyuan period and the Yiheyuan period. I'll use these names later to help explain their timeline. The official English name is Summer Palace, which honestly isn't great. Sure, royal gardens during the Qing dynasty were mostly used in summer, but there were several summer palaces, including ones in Beijing and in Chengde Hebei province. And this one wasn't even the most luxurious among them. This courtyard served a very different purpose during the two historical periods. Emperor Qianlong, who ordered the construction of this garden, never actually spent the night here. Instead, he used this courtyard as an office and a dining area. Why didn't he sleep in the summer palace? I'll tell that story a bit later. Once again, we see the typical layout. The main hall in the center, with two small side halls on either side. During the Yiheyuan period, this courtyard became the residence of Emperor Guangxu. There are side gates behind the two side halls, but in 1898, Guangxu was placed under house arrest by his aunt, Empress Dowager Cixi. To prevent him from contacting the outside world, both of the gates were sealed off. It's really crowded here right now, and the main hall isn't open for visitors, but I found two photos showing what it looks like inside. The center hall was used as an office, and the room on the left was Emperor Guangxu's bedroom. All the buildings in this courtyard are connected by covered corridors, another signature feature of royal gardens from the Qing dynasty. Let's head into the backyard of this complex. Here we see a classic design element of traditional Chinese gardens, rock formations placed near the entrance to block the direct view into the courtyard. This technique is called view blocking. It's meant to create a sense of mystery. This two-story building was Emperor Qianlong's favorite in the entire garden. From the second floor, he could sit and enjoy stunning views of the lake and the sunset. It's also the main building of this courtyard. And over there is its main entrance. Moving on, this courtyard has a similar layout to the first one we visited. Emperor Qianlong, who was known for his intelligence and love of reading, used this courtyard as one of his private libraries. The next four emperors after him kept it the same. During the Yiheyuan period, this courtyard became the residence of the Empress. The two side halls were used by Emperor Guangxu's concubines. By the way, Emperor Guangxu's Empress was actually his elder cousin. Their marriage was arranged, or rather forced, by Empress Dowager Cixi. It was an unhappy marriage, and many consider it a tragic story. The main hall here is also closed to the public, but here is a photo of the interior. Since the Empress had no political duties, there is no desk inside. Her bedroom, just like in the previous layout, was on the left side. You might be wondering, when the emperor visited a concubine here, wouldn't the others feel awkward or jealous? Actually, that kind of situation wouldn't happen. According to strict palace rules set by the early emperors, the emperor couldn't just visit concubines at will. There were even rules requiring concubines to leave the emperor's bedroom before he fell asleep, all to prevent them from influencing his decisions or gaining too much power. There is also a small courtyard behind this area, and this gate is the rear entrance to the whole building complex. It leads up to the mountain section of the garden, but we will save that part for later. Now we are back at the front of the 3 courtyards we just visited, and we are heading to the next spot. This gate here is one of the side gates of the Hall of Jade Ripples. It was sealed off in 1898 and was belongs to the first courtyard we looked at earlier. Now we are arrived at the Garden of Virtue and Harmony. This area was used for watching and performing traditional Chinese opera. These buildings did not exist during the Qingyuan period. They were added in 1891, especially for Empress Dowager Cixi, who was a big fan of opera. This tall building is made up of 2 parts. Right now we are looking at the back section, which has 2 floors. It was originally used as a preparation area for the performers. Okay, let's go inside. Now it is used as an art gallery. Honestly, I don't know much about painting, so we will move through this part quickly. Alright, we are back outside and heading to the core section of this complex. On both sides of the main stage, there are dozens of private viewing rooms. When Empress daughter Cixi came here to watch operas, she would often invite high-ranking officials and royal relatives to join her. They would sit here enjoying the performance, eating snacks, and drinking tea. The closer a room was to the central hall, the higher the guest's social status. Now, if someone happened to be an opera fan, this would have been a rare and precious experience. But for those who didn't enjoy opera, well, it was probably a long and painful day. And of course, they still had to pretend to be very enthusiastic. You couldn't show boredom in front of Cixi. This stage building has 3 floors, which means up to 3 performing teams could work together and put on a layered, complex show, something incredibly extravagant. Such luxury was reserved for Empress daughter Cixi alone, a woman known for her taste for excess. She would watch performances here for an entire day, about once every 2 weeks. Inside the stage, there is even a hidden trapdoor in the floor. With ropes attached, actors could dramatically drop down from the upper level, like flying down from the heavens. Let's keep moving. And this is the main gate of the courtyard with the 2-story building, the one Emperor Qianlong loved. This alley runs between the Garden of Virtue and Harmony and the Pavilion of Artistic Delight. What we see here is one of the 2 side entrances of the pavilion. Now we are stepping into the courtyard behind the Pavilion of Artistic Delight again, and as you can see, it's almost empty before 7 a.m. This path over here leads to the mountain area of the garden. The main hall of this courtyard is on the other side of this green gate, but is not open to the public. This yard is one of the two side courtyards attached to the Hall of Joy and Longevity. Unlike the Hall of Jade Ripples, which has its own side halls, this hall doesn't. So instead, it's supported by two independent courtyards with its own main buildings, serving the same function as side halls. Now we have entered the main courtyard of the Hall of Joy and Longevity. Back in the Yiheyuan period, this hall had two floors and was built for Emperor Qianlong's mother. When it was rebuilt in 1886, it became a single-story building. Possibly because Empress daughter Cixi preferred to live on the ground floor and didn't allow anyone to live above her. The gate is open now, but it's too dark inside to see clearly, so I have found some pictures to show you the interior. All the furniture and decorations were made from the most luxurious materials available. This huge rock, with over 20 tons, is called the Iron Linge Rock. Of course, transporting such a massive stone from southern China would have been impossible at the time. In fact, it was discovered in the outskirts of Beijing during the 17th century. Emperor Qianlong became obsessed with this rock and had it moved here. So how did they do it? In winter, workers poured water on the ground to freeze it into ice. Then the rock was placed on a wooden sled and dragged by horses across the ice. This same ancient technique was used during the 15th century to move massive stones while building the Forbidden City. Especially for this large carved ramp. I'll cover that part in a future episode. Let's keep going. This is the other side courtyard of the Hall of Joy and Longevity. Through the green gate over there is a fan-shaped room and a pond where ornamental fish were raised. This gate marks the starting point of the 728-meter-long corridor. It was originally built by Emperor Qianlong for his mother, so she could enjoy walking through the garden without getting sunburned or caught in the rain. The corridor was later rebuilt in 1888. What makes the long corridor most famous are its paintings. There are more than 14,000 unique paintings along both the inner and outer beams. Their themes are drawn from ancient poetry, famous historical stories, novels, etc. These paintings fade with time, so they have been repainted many times over the years. The ones we see today were redone in 1978. Unfortunately, no one really knows what the original paintings from 1750 looked like. Here we have an independent courtyard called the Pavilion of Nurturing Clouds. It's one of the very few buildings in the garden that survived the fire of 1860. It served as guest rooms. When friends or relatives of the emperor or empress daughter visited, they would rest here. There is not much dramatic history tied to this building, so let's just enjoy the architecture.
So this will be one of the We spend the money to live here a year, 1 year.
？Now we are back on the long corridor.
前面走一下哈。
精华的，没，它这些建筑物都是之前的吧？对，都是在原来的基础上又修复起来的。样子对，之前就是之前的这个把以前的那个恢复起来了。
Here is one of the 4 identical pavilions located along the corridor. They symbolize the 4 seasons: spring, summer, autumn, and winter.
这边来，这边我们到这边看一看这个湖。
To my left is a shop, though it hasn't opened for the day yet. And to my right is another courtyard that has never been opened to the public. Right now it's under maintenance. While we are walking along the long corridor, let me give you a bit of background about royal gardens in ancient China. Chinese royal gardens have a long history, but emperors from the Han ethnic group tended to prefer grand palaces, like the Forbidden City. Almost every dynasty had its own majestic palace, but the Forbidden City is the only one that has been fully preserved. I will explain why that is in the Forbidden City series. As for their gardens, most were relatively small and used more like vacation spots, similar in concept to places like Mar-a-Lago for modern leaders. This reflects the traditional culture of an agricultural society. Take Jingshan Park for example, located just behind the Forbidden City. It was the royal garden of the Ming Dynasty. Beihai Park, a bit further out, became a royal garden starting from the time when the Liao Dynasty ruled the Beijing area. But compared to the Qing Dynasty gardens, these older gardens are much smaller and have a different style. I will also tell these 2 gardens in the future. The Qing Dynasty, however, was established by the Manchu people, who came from northeast China and were not originally part of Han Chinese territory before 1644. The Manchus were not an agricultural people. They were known for their skills in battle and they lived close to nature. So unlike Han people emperors of Qing Dynasty didn't enjoy staying inside the Forbidden City all year around. Even though after decades of rule in central China, they gradually adopted many Han cultural customs, the emperors still encouraged the Manchus to preserve their traditional ways of life. Much like how some immigrant communities in the United States preserve their ancestral cultures, such as the Celtics or Irish Americans. That's why after the Qing took over in 1644, they started building royal gardens that reflected their own traditions. Let's pause the historical background here. I'll come back to that topic later. Now we have arrived at the most iconic structure in this entire garden, the Tower of the Fragrance of the Buddha. This not open courtyard is an affiliated section of that tower. Back in the Yiheyuan period, the area below the tower was once a large Buddhist temple, and this specific spot used to be a pavilion for burning incense. But after the entire area was destroyed in the fire of 1860, Empress Dowager Cixi didn't rebuild it as a temple. Instead, she turned it into a luxurious complex of living quarters, bedrooms, and parlors. So there was no longer any need for an incense pavilion. A regular courtyard was built here instead. However, Cixi only stayed here for one night before moving back to the Hall of Joy and Longevity. And since no one else was allowed to live in a palace more lavish than the Empress Dowager's own residence, this courtyard ended up having no real function during the Yiheyuan period. This section of the long corridor has just been freshly repainted, which is why it looks especially vibrant and colorful. Now we have reached the main gate of the Tower of the Fragrance of the Buddha, which is also the central courtyard of the whole garden. Right outside the gate, you will see a decorative archway. Those archways are usually placed directly over a road, not off to the side, to make the road appear more grand and ceremonial. This one was placed here because there is a wharf along the lake's edge. A river connects this lake directly to the Forbidden City, so the Emperor or the Empress Dowager could board a boat there and disembark right here. This concludes the first episode. In the next one, we will explore this courtyard and the Tower of the Fragrance of the Buddha in depth, and enjoy the stunning views from this magnificent structure.